Electronics has been there for so long. Why are we having this discussion now? We're having this discussion now because, Fabio, just for 2 seconds, I'll say something in Hindi, but I will translate for you. You know, our Prime Minister says, Abhi samay hai, sahi samay hai. And you know, I thought a lot about these two sentences. Guneet, I'm assuming you do understand Hindi. Abhi samay hai means time is right. Sahi samay hai is time is now and time is right. So I thought a lot about it and I thought a lot of convergence of technologies is happening. You know, compute has become so much cheaper. The compute that would require like billions of dollars in the year 2000 to do genome sequencing can be done in hundreds of dollars. If you look at battery, the cost of battery over the last 5 years has reduced by 90%. Not only that, there is a need with digitalization. There is a need for semiconductor, there's a need for equipment. Just very quickly, I'll tell you that India is driving something called JAM Trinity. And JAM stands for Jandhan, which means bank accounts. Aadhaar stands for biometric identity. And then M stands for mobile phone. The amount of business this one single device has enabled through mobile apps-based services is unimaginable. Do you know that there is through this and through a platform called Unified Payment Interface, India is making at least 20 billion interactions leveraging UPI. And the belief is it's going to be 1 billion a day. And then it's going to be, continuing to increase. So that's what the power of electronics is, this one phone and our dreams of 3x GDP by 2030 and a dream of 10x GDP by 2047. And I can tell you that in this current span in India over the last 15 years, I told myself GDP is 1 trillion. Oh, no, wait, GDP is 2 trillion. Oh, no, wait, it's gone 3. Now it's 4. And the reason is we need democratization of electronics because this needs to go into the hand of every single person in India, not just this, the devices that makes people's lives and quality better. So India is ready with its government pushing for the right investment. India is ready to support the investments with this incentives and many programs that help land. So I'm very excited, Guneet and Fabio, that you are considering India.
Yeah. You want to give your perspective? Okay. I mean, I agree with the UPI. So I live in the US, I live in Texas, but I'm from India. And it's funny, I went for a vacation 4 or 5 months ago, and I went to the sabji wala, the guy who gives the vegetables, and he asked me for a UPI. He literally have a QR code for 10 rupees. Yes, and I didn't have a UPI. And he looked at me and said, "Aap bahar se ho gaye." Yeah, you must be from outside, right? So it's really interesting to see how democratization has gone down to the vegetable vendor, grassroots, sabji wala. And I think the same thing, what we're seeing a lot, the global phenomena, is a lot of people have focused on the intelligence in AI and generative AI. You see all of that over here. But the foundation of that has to be electronics.
Yes.
Only if you have a device which can actually get all this information, can you do all the fancy Gen AI on top of that, which we absolutely, appreciate. And on top of that, if you look at India as well as globally, the amount of graduates coming out with expertise in electronics is significantly reduced. And with the partners from Kearney, we did a very interesting survey with 200 plus folks to see how that is coming together. So the talent is flat, the need is very high, we need to democratize all the way down. And we strongly believe that the way we can do it is by making electronics easy. And that's one thing which has not happened in the world. And we're very excited about India because India brings that talent base as well as the scale that we can bring. We didn't know that India is the second largest producer of mobile phones. You knew 3 years ago. So I think we're very excited to get this all together. And Fabio, I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's always a big pleasure to be in your company. So when it comes to Arduino, I think Arduino stands in a very special position from this point of view because it started with the idea of getting computing closer to everyday things. And this is very important because right now we are at a crazy moment in technology where there is all sort of computing available. As Arduino, we focus on a specific part of the electronics that is the world of embedded systems. So small, tiny computer that can be deployed everywhere and can feed also very complicated models that can run in the cloud. And we did a lot of work at Arduino, not only in terms of developing sophisticated electronics that can be really accessible for everyone, but also broadening the quantity of people that can access technology, because we strongly believe in a society where everyone can understand technology, but also have an impact by tweaking the electronics, making it personalized, making it specific for their needs. And we see this across the board. It's in education, but it's also in the society. We have 36 million people visiting our website and using our tools every year. But we see also this in industry, so sectors that were cut out from the revolution are now being able to access technology and also take their machinery, maybe old machinery, put them in the cloud, gather data, improve their processes. So it's an interesting moment in time. The technology is there, the standards are there, AI is there, mobile phones, as we said, and different types of biometrics and different types of technology are there. And we want to act as a sort of a glue in this world, starting from the physical devices and going up instead of the data center down.
Can I just take your role for one moment as a moderator and ask Fabio a question?
Please.
Fabio, when I speak to a lot of people, enthusiasts and students, they are looking at Arduino as a hobby platform, and they want to build electronics, they want to show a functionality, and the way I spoke to them that I called it a functional platform. But of late, I'm seeing a lot of people, and I specifically talked to a guy who's looking at power electronics for solar. He's saying, I'll take the Arduino platform and I'll build on top of it, and I'm going to take this into production as a full-fledged manufactured part. How confident you are that your product can actually go into the market for millions and billions of use cases?
Yeah, so very nice question. It does, because we created a specific part of the Arduino offering. It's now a complete portfolio of devices, starting exactly from this type of need and use cases. So we saw a lot of people taking the hobbyist boards that we developed and deploy them in production. Because of a number of reasons, they were easy to access, but also very robust, the whole family of product we had. So we deliberately created a strategy around the enterprise application of Arduino, increasing the computational power of our devices, but also extending the temperature range for those devices, increasing the standardization and modularity, so it's much easier to fit much smaller devices into bigger application, and also delivering some finished products that can be, for example, very suitable for the kind of use cases that you were mentioning, because they are sort of plug and play, but still open source, so people can look what is inside the device, even they don't tweak the hardware because they don't need to, and they can program it using the language they learn for the board. Because I think at the end of the day, if you look at our market, there's always been some well-kept secret for a small group of electrical engineers, and we don't think that's the case for the future. So we think that by giving possibility to people to take these components, sophisticated components, and make them accessible.
Yeah, Fabio, if I could add something, my favorite memory, we just came from Las Vegas from the Consumer Electronics Show, 120,000 people. My favorite memory was Walt Disney, BMW, Boeing, all of these folks came, especially Disney was my favorite because my kids love Disney rides. They use Arduino. They use Arduino enterprise uses in commercial enterprise use cases.
Lovely, that's
So it's
exactly.
really good to see that this is actually going into the
And
enterprise.
automotive going?
Automotives, BMW, Audi, Ferrari.
There's so many less performant compute that cars need in so many ECUs. So I was imagining that your automation platform should be sitting in many cars.
Yeah, and we are using, I see the use cases go everywhere from power to smart agriculture to automotive to buildings. A lot of building automation, factory floors, factory automation.
Perfect.
And then what we're really looking forward to is with the boom that India is going through in the manufacturing and industrial sector, how can we actually create this even stronger portfolio, even build in India. So we're exploring, as you know, build in India. So I think it's starting to roll out in the enterprise with the combination of powerful devices and electronics, easy to use and open source, is I think the secret
I love
sauce.
it. Agriculture. Bharat, you told him today. Agriculture,
Smart ag.
automotive, and solar. You're committing.
The possibilities are real, as Fabio said, but I'll get to possibilities in a little bit. Before I wrap up this first topic, Sid, I would like you to comment on, so there's been a lot of discussion, Niviti alluded to the consumer side of it, and when we look at India from outside, it's all about UPI, the digitization, but it's very consumer focused. Can you allude to the non-consumer side of the world, the industrial, and when we started getting into it, the production systems, the automations, and I think it was 6-7 years ago, I was here, somebody from India and Bangladesh made a comment that we don't have the capital to get to a third industrial revolution, we have to jump to the fourth, and digital is going to get there. You guys are the building, and Arduinos of the world are the building blocks. So allude to that before we move to democratization.
Yeah, thanks, Bharat, and it's truly exciting to be in a panel today morning with people who are so excited about India and believe so much in India.
Look at his pin.
So maybe I'll start with the first question that you asked about what's changed. Electronics been around and in India also for a long time. So what is it? Why now the right time? I think what has fundamentally changed is that earlier India used to look at many of these in silos. So there were companies that were doing design, but they weren't sourcing from India. There were companies that are sourcing from India, but they were not manufacturing in India. There were companies which were manufacturing in India, but they were not coming out with the final products from India. So what's now changed is that the view of semiconductors and electronics in India has taken an end-to-end ecosystem view. And I think that's the most powerful change that has happened in the last couple of years. That we've started looking at the possibilities that come in when you look at this end-to-end. Now and that leads me to what you asked second. When you look at it end-to-end, each part of this ecosystem is feeding the next, and each part of the ecosystem is getting business from another part of the ecosystem. So from earlier, what's fundamentally changing is that this is starting to become a viable end-to-end ecosystem, a chain that is connected together. And there, when you look at it, that's where solutions like Arduino also come in, because you're bringing in the compute, the ecosystem is going to build around it. There are going to be mechanicals, there are going to be power supplies, there are going to be cables, connectors, displays, all of these things which can build together with each other and really form that ecosystem for India. And then if you look at the industrial cases, you look at the amount of, say, home automation or industrial automation that you can get into in a country like India, where again, manufacturing is taking off. The manufacturing taking off across sectors, not just electronics, is going to draw that demand in for industrial electronics. That's going to draw in the demand for products in industrial electronics. So I think that it's a very good time to be in this, because now we're all converging towards this ecosystem.
So if I may simplify this, what I heard from all of you, you all are saying that electronics are going to be the building blocks or the bricks and the mortars of everything, that whether it's AI or it's the digital platforms or is the industrial manufacturing, even automation out there. So thank you. So with this, I'll move to the next topic, democratization. That's generally associated with countries and politics. So what is democratization doing with electronics? So I would like all of you to chime. Fabio, Vineet, give us a sense from a technology perspective, and you have 30+ million users. What does that mean to it? And then Niviti and Sid, I would like you to discuss this from an India perspective.
Ravi, why don't you start?
Yeah, no, I think for us is at the very center of what we do every day. So because what we try is to enable people creativity by making complex technology simple to use. And this has been our mantra since the very beginning of the company. The idea where we started was to let the science students add a brain to their creation. This was not an easy task when we started 18 years ago, because everything was really difficult to access for people that didn't have a degree or in software or hardware. And we made it simple. So, and we are pushing forward towards this path, moving forward as a company. For us, it's very important because we see a continuum. We see a continuum from like a personal passion to education, and then a lot of people that have been using Arduino in education or at home are now bringing I think the concept of Arduino in their professional life. And of course, democratizing means also for us taking very sophisticated technology. And that's the reason why we leverage a lot of the relationship we have with semiconductor companies, the most relevant semiconductor companies in the world, or the most advanced sensors company in the world, usable way. For example, in the company we have a lot of interaction designers, UX people, because we have to look at democratization by lowering the barrier to entry. And this means easy to use cloud services, easy to use and understand physical devices, and everything in between, development tools, documentation. So we do a lot of work. People normally take Arduino as a given, but for us, every day we spend millions of dollars in really lowering the barriers to entry for technology.
Thank you, Fabio. I do want to share with you an opinion of with a data point of one. I have two children in high school, and it's very interesting that when they bring their projects home, they are backed by our system. And they did not know that I was like interviewing you here today. But it's yes, you made a comment in the previous time when you said possibilities for people. I can see it firsthand, so thank you for doing that. And everything maybe you share, what does democratization mean from an India perspective, then we will go to sit and meet.
Okay. Just the word democracy tells me that there's got to be everybody participating in it. And, being the world's largest or one of the largest democracy, the goal of democratizing electronics says it should be available, accessible, usable by the 1.4 billion people. And I'll tell you, to me, electronics improves quality of my life, whether it's through my phone, whether it's through the devices, laptops, desktops that I have, whether it's even through television. No longer are these devices only entertainment devices. These devices are actually devices that have services that are improving my life, whether it is education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's e-retail, whether it is monitoring my day-to-day heartbeat. Why should it be only available to the limited few? So for me, democratizing means every electronic that improves the quality of life of the not just 1.4 billion that are sitting in India, but the 8 billion that are in the world. Why should anybody not get the benefit? I mean, we are all the same in the end, right? So why should, and the onus is on us. If it is very expensive, if it is usable in a very clinical environment, and I'm going to tell you something about Arduino that I absolutely love. If it is designed to be very limited, then we are failing. I'm looking at a smart guy like Guneet and a smart guy like Fabio and Sid and you. What are we doing to make these devices available to everyone? It has got to be affordable, it's got to be accessible, it's got to be, be able to be used in whichever world they live in. and he needs a lot of innovation. He just mentioned millions of dollars daily. So it's not just dollars, it's the mind and it's the mindset that I love when he said his device is open source, people can use it, these are the verticals. His vision to begin with is democratic. So we are partnering with him to take his democratic vision and enable countries like mine and like yours, everybody's. Why should it only be for elite? And therefore, I absolutely love Arduino's vision, which is democratic by definition, and the charter that we are taking now, democratizing electronics. Our goal is much bigger than me or you are big. Our goal is for humanity. And I really want to see in the next 3 years, everybody be able to access a platform like this and build a solution that they care about. I've seen students in India, and I told you, don't give me the mic because I will keep going. Students in India, you give them a platform. We supported them while I was with Intel, supported them with AI platforms. They solved the problems that they were facing day in, day out. Somebody's mother had issues that they were able to diagnose better. Before that epileptic condition set in, they figured it out. So give them the access to these platforms and let's unleash the innovation.
Yeah, if I may add, and I think this is really interesting what you said. The only thing I'd like to add is democratization doesn't mean, of course, it means making things simple, but that doesn't mean you can actually use the power to do very advanced things. And I think that's one of our visions, and that's one of the most important things to do. I agree with everything you both said. And I think the main thing to do, along with making it super accessible, affordable, open, is it's still powerful to solve simple use cases where Bharat's kid can do an LED go green, red, and blue and get really excited and understand how electronics works. At the same time, do very advanced stuff like machine monitoring, predictive maintenance, artificial intelligence. And the same platform should be able to give the power to the users to kind of do advanced use cases while they very simply learn how to do electronics, genome sequencing, healthcare. I mean, so many of our friends and families are dealing with ailments. Yes. Why should diagnosis be so expensive and so hard? Why can't electronics help with that? So I think that's the only thing I'd like to add. I think I love everything you said. And we have to make sure that democratization also gives the power to the user to do very simple things to understand, but at the same time, solve humanity problems which are really large.
I will just end with one thing, and Bharat, don't give me the mic again. I feel a person who understands a complex problem is the one who can break it into simple tasks.
Yes.
If you can break into simple tasks, then you have understood the problem. So take a simple functional block, put it into a complex task, and you have a complex solution. That's what my vision is, how I expect, to enable India and any other country to leverage Arduino.
Sid, I want to ask you a quick question to wrap up this, but then I have a follow-up for Vineet, you based on what you said. Sid, when the very first time we had this conversation, I'm going to wrap you out here. You look like a kid in a candy store. So tell us, why was it so exciting for you, having spent all your career at Intel, when you looked at it, you're like, this is for India?
So I'll borrow a few words, what Fabio said when he was in India a few months back. So he says to the crowd, where he was speaking, that I'm the CEO of Arduino. If you don't know me, your kids at home will know, because they work with our products. To me, that was very powerful in the sense, democratizing electronics starts with how electronics enters the home, every home, not as a consumption commodity, but with ability to create.
Yeah.
So the kid in the candy store was because I felt here is now power coming in the hands of millions of students, enthusiasts, startups, and companies in India who no longer need to look at creating something new as something very difficult. We've been a consumption market. We have so much of further consumption that's possible in the country. But if that consumption comes from solutions and products that are all going to be imported, we are not going to be meeting our goals. So I think the powerful thing here is the fact that platforms like Arduino give the power for the ecosystem to start building solutions rather than only consuming solutions. And that's totally exciting because we've not been able to do a lot of that because you can have ideas in your mind, but you need to have a pathway of how that idea can be executed. That's something that India needs right now. I'm 100% sure that there's so many bright minds out there. They've got ideas. They face difficulty in terms of how do I now execute this? Where do I start? If everybody has to go in and get a board manufactured themselves, we know how difficult it is. So you have to start something which is a platform. So that platform view. On top of that platform, we know that only hardware can't do everything. You need software, you need IPs. And the platform view that is super critical comes in as the next part. You need a development environment that's easy to use. You need to have pre-built modules and software that are already tested. And that accelerates the time it takes for you to make this solution. So I can go on. There's so many things exciting about this.
That's why you are a kid in the candy store. Guneet, I want to put a question to you, starting with what Nuri said. The smartest people take very complex tasks and make them simple, and then they can be executed. So if I look at your portfolio of sensing devices, compute devices, actuating devices, that kind of validates her statement. Add a little bit to it. How did you guys think about building the portfolios of it? And like this is a little bit of a path to where I want to go to Fabio with. Historically, you guys have been associated with hobbies and schools and all, but you are transitioning towards professional industrial grade. And this is where, again, simplifying the complex tasks. Hobbies are not very complex. You know, if they don't work, nothing happens. But now getting in the industrial space, they have catastrophic events. You guys have solved for that. So
yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. I think one of my mentors said once, which I will, use again, saying, simplicity is complexity resolved. I mean, it's that simple because you can take such a complex problem and Steve Jobs, right? I mean, that's what he did for Apple. He just made it so simple to get the basic usage and the basic, business problem solved. So literally, that's the same philosophy we've taken. We took the first philosophy 18 years ago, which was really focused on design students designing electronics for humanity and understanding that without the nitty-gritty of, so it was hobbyists and students, but yes, it was how do people think of user experience, use electronics to get there. 3.5 years ago, we realized that the way a new product introduction was done with electronics just takes too long, is very complex, and is honestly, the focus is on the complexity versus what the problem is being solved. So we started 3.5 years ago with this Arduino Pro, which our tagline is 9 months to 9 days. How can you go from 9 months of complexity to boilerplate all the normal things which have to get done anyway, and make it really, really simple. And then simplicity comes with the context of modularity. I think the combination of simplicity and modularity is key, whereas then you can still give the power to the user that when they can do things simply, they still understand what else can be solved. And every next solution does not need 9 months. My favorite example, I'll stop, is we were in CES again in the Porsche booth, and we had a worker safety sensing device, very complex. And the entire dashboard was done by our marketing lead, who's 24 years old. She has no engineering degree. So, if she can do a dashboard in less than a day of, how can you create an advanced worker safety, I mean, that's truly simple, but modular and powerful, right? And Fabio, I don't know if you want to add something.
Fabio, give me 1 second. Okay. I love your 9 months to 9 days. Fabio, while you add on Guneet, I do have a few questions so you can answer all of them together. You have 30+ million members. It itself kind of gives a sense for democratization. In my sense of what you do, would it be fair to say you are doing to hardware what Linux did to software, pretty much brought it down to everybody? And lastly, I would ask you a question because we are going to run out of time. What is 1 or 2 examples, you can even go to 3, that just actually gets you to sit and say, I never imagined somebody could do it. Now, I've heard about stories from some very interesting projects done by people in India, in Africa, in places where we did not expect this to happen, or even the development, something that was just out of the blue that you had not thought of. So these are a lot of questions, but I'll just give all of them to you in one breath.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on the previous conversation, I think that talking in general about the electronics complexity, I love what Sid said about changing completely the perspective from being passive and just watching technology happen to being active and at least understanding technology, because you may understand and say, okay, but I want an iPhone, and it's totally fair, because I think that getting there is not for everyone. But at least, for example, understanding how a power tree for a modern compute module work is something that is a well-kept secret by electrical engineers. So there is a lot we can do there to for the awareness and then for activation of a larger chunk of the population. Also because many problems that are not getting solved because people they are overwhelmed by the idea, or even doing an IoT project in 2024. So going to your point about Linux, exactly. I think that there is an aspect that for us is crucial. That is the ability to have everywhere in our journey for people a learning experience, even if they are professional. But I can tell you, if we stop some people here down the road, we have the top technologies, welcome. We have top technology companies, but probably not all of them are aware of the complexity of the different things. So being able to unleash these possibilities by letting them understanding, even if they don't want to touch electronics, is very important. So Linux is a perfect example, because with that kind of transparency, you may ignore how the kernel of Linux is done, or a subsystem for telecommunication and the Linux operating system. But if you want, you can dig into and learn how it's done, and maybe improve it or tweak it for your own personal use. And that's important, because we go beyond that and we say you can also take the hardware. And then we get into the third part of your question, crazy example or not so crazy example. So we have countless examples in the community. I think we had recent stories, for example, during the COVID. COVID hit really badly the entire world, but especially countries that could not afford sophisticated medical equipment. So we had a ton of projects, and we were sponsoring also a channel on our forum for people building ventilators. Huge movement, because basically there people recognize that a ventilator at the end of the day needs motor control, quality of the flow, a lot of other sensors that were easy to hack together with Arduino. And the original Arduino products, both the Pro and the non-Pro, are rock solid, let's say, technology. So for them it was a no-brainer. So we had the University of Oxford, for example, buying a ton of Arduino original products to ship them to other developed countries to build this kind of Aux event. Other projects that were having an impact during the Fukushima event, we were not aware, but there was a community that was pretty large that built a Geiger counter network, let's say homegrown, that was gathering data with a very granular resolution. That was very helpful in the subsequent years. Was criticized at the very beginning. We said, you are not scientists, why the heck are you measuring radiation? But at the end of the day, having hundreds of thousands of people buying Arduinos based, let's say Geiger counters, gave science like a big boost, because they saw how the radiation was spreading in Japan and in the US. And we can go forever. So we have people that completely changed their job. So startups building fancy sensor-based drilling machines, and then starting their own companies based on this idea that started by having the possibility to hook together the latest and greatest sensors that, of course, are impressive and in terms of capabilities, but they are also traditionally difficult to use. And the power of the community is that, don't ask me why, but people write insane quantity of software for free. and make them available. So now accessing a Bosch sensor tech, sensor fusion sensor that became ubiquitous because they are everywhere in phones, apps, etc. It's a simple task. So you do like a sensor fusion for an accelerometer that is able to understand your steps while you walk. So you buy, I don't know, a few dollars sensors, a few dollars Arduino, and then you can think about, a physical device for physiotherapy, for example, and you can build it your own. You don't have to wait for Garmin or somebody to come with a closed source, let's say, thing. You can just hook it up and it works. And you can learn low power, you can learn sensing and all these things. And maybe come up with a new idea that didn't exist before, and maybe a new startup, or maybe a corporate initiative that is starting not from the official R&D or innovation department. You can start from the accounting department and say, okay, but we can do this thing, we can sort all the papers or something like that.
Super. I'm looking at the clock here again. Nivriti, I'll ask you the last question before we have closing comments. So you also oversee Startup India. You have enrolled into the colleges and institutions. They look up to you and your department and ministries for innovation. What is your vision for this partnership? What can Fabio and the Leeds company do for you? Or when I say you, I mean India.
Yeah. Firstly, I definitely want our children to have access, the simple learning, because they are the dreamers. So market for Arduino, definitely. But more interesting for me is, Sid explained it really well. To me, Arduino is a whole bunch of IPs. They are strung together, placed on a PCB, and all of this, connected IPs require, an OS to run, requires some software to run. All of this is ready. What I'm saying is, I want you to look at India to manufacture every single little building block, whether it is as small as the passive sitting on the board, resistors, capacitors, fuses, or the microcontrollers, or any connectivity device, and PCB, like I said, and all of them assembled. That will, at least get our ecosystem going on how this complete platform is built. So I'm looking at you to look at us as a market. I'm looking at you to look at your partners in building those devices, perhaps even designing, and lastly, manufacturing. To me, that will be my crawl, walk, run strategy. Start with, access to the students, then get into, one component building, two component building, things that, are easier, which we already have people working, and then have bigger plans. I want us to grow together in terms of your commercialization of Arduino. So commercialization into actual products, I want you to look at India as your partner. Not just for India market, but partner with us to enable Arduino-based products to be commercialized in millions of numbers for the world.
Sid, Guneet, parting thoughts from you on your vision.
So I'll use a very Indian example. There was Ekalavya who was learning by watching because he didn't have a guru. And I'll explain the story to Fabio later as well. The way India has adopted Arduino and the platform today is by going online, downloading the IDE, developing the products, looking at some examples, videos, etc. What I'm super excited about is now the possibility with Arduino's focus in India to work with the ecosystem, with the students, with the startups, then learning from the Dronacharya directly on this platform. So I'll leave it at that.
Very well said.
That's a big crown on your head to make you Dronacharya.
Yeah, so I think for me it's really interesting. I also see the growth of India has come with a lot of local, hyper local, consumption. The B2Cs, the combination of Flipkarts and other things coming in. I think India is now set for build local, grow global.
Yes.
That would be my tagline. Build local, grow global. I think we want to be a partner to help you with that. We'd love to build local, as you said, but also use all the talent base, all the intelligence. I mean, I did my engineering in India, and I'm in the US right now. But how do we use all of that combination to kind of grow the global economy, to democratize, make electronics really simple, but yet really powerful?
Global.
Global, yeah, local.
So I was going to close with the word possibilities, but maybe we close with global. But as they say, all good things have to come to an end. So I'll just summarize the discussion. Possibility seems to be the exact word here. And everything I'm going to say here was possibilities for children who are dreamers. And that is so true. The new innovation is going to come from that generation, which is still in elementary schools. And I think you guys are powering that or seeding it. The second part is innovation. Once we democratize and make these devices accessible, again, the possibilities are boundless. And lastly, I'll say, India needs an affordable, available, and a usable system, and I think this brings to that. Now, as they say, every good thing comes to an end, but we don't have to end it here. We do have a white paper here called Democratizing Electronics that you can read more about, more of the details on it. So with this, I do want to thank you, Vineet, Nivriti, Fabio, and Sid. This was exhilarating for me. Now, I'm biased, so of course I will enjoy having spent my entire time in the electronics world. So this was very nice. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.